Okay. Let's do presenter view. And then let's go there. Oh God, not my Maka. All right. You should be, wait a minute. Want the chair?
It's okay.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Oh, is this working? Oh, sorry. You guys hear me in the back? Okay, perfect. Okay, so let me go back. Okay, so today's design lecture is on Introduction to Human-Centered Design. So as a few general rules of thumb, you want to make sure that you're designing with empathy and making sure that you're designing from the perspective of the user. And also you want to stay neutral and make sure that you don't have any biases in mind. And you want to design for simplicity because a lot of times the prettiest, most fancy design often doesn't work the best. So what is human-centered design? Human-centered design incorporates the human perspective. So throughout the entire design process, you're thinking, how can we design this so it works best for humans and it works best for the person that I'm designing it for? So why do we use human-centered design process? Because throughout this entire process, you're interacting a lot with people. So it can help us make sure we're designing things that are actually going to be useful and effective for the people that are going to use them. So this is what the human-centered design process looks like roughly. This is analysis first, then design, evaluation, then implementation. So in the analysis portion, this is where we're going to be conducting our user research, and with the user research, we're going to define a problem space. And then in the design process, we're going to do ideation, which is basically just brainstorming a bunch of ways to find a solution. And then evaluation is going to be user testing, where you're going to make the user interact with your product and tell you what they think could be improved. And then implementation is just prototyping and fabricating the product. So going into user research, throughout the step, we're thinking, how can we empathize with our potential users? And is there anything that they might really need and want through this product? So a few user research methods. First, we have interviews, which is basically really anecdotal. It's qualitative data, and they're just giving you your personal stories. And then in a lot of interviews, we also conduct contextual inquiries, which is basically where we're giving them a task to do, then we observe them, and then we ask them if there's anything they struggled with. And then we also have surveys, which is just collecting quantitative data on a very large scale. And then card sorting, which is where we'll give them a bunch of ideas they can group together, and then we observe why they group them together. And then we also have desk research, just preliminary research. And this is often like academic papers or like projects that have been done before. And then also ethnographic research, which is just an observation in like the user's natural habitat. And then, so after we've conducted all of our research, we want to define the problem scope and create a how might we question. So yeah, the how might we question, you can narrow it down to focus on your user and focus on what everyone's saying the problem is. And in the how might we statement, you can also touch upon what your solution might look like, but you don't want to go too specific. So in the ideation process, you're thinking, how can we solve this problem? So you want to synthesize your findings. So one thing we can do is see if there's a clear group of users that have similar experiences. If there is, you can make personas, which is basically fake characters that represent the group that you're designing for. So this is an example of what a persona might look like. We can focus on Kelly's profile, but sorry, it's kind of far away. But underneath her profile, there's like some facts about her, like her age, like, what is this? Sorry, I can't see. It's like their job title and then like a few characteristics they might have. And then underneath their name, this is like an about blurb. And then there's some goals, pain points, and needs that they might have. So for creating personas, you want to give a character to some of the users, and you want to keep going back to this persona to make sure that the solution that you come up with will actually like help Kelly. So The next step is seeing if there's a clear process that the user seems to follow. And if there is, you can use a journey map, which is basically a timeline. This is an example of what a journey map might look like for someone who's switching their mobile plans. So you can see there's 4 sections, and the first one is like define what they're doing. So this would be like they know that they want to change their phone plan, then they're comparing their phone plans and then negotiating maybe the price of a phone plan and then selecting which one they want to actually purchase. So you can see there's a line through the middle. This is like the journey that the user is going through. You can see there's ups and downs, and there's little comments here that you can reference. And for the points where it dips down, you can focus here and make sure that you design a solution for this concern at this point of the journey. So the next step is finding key insights and narrowing down your ideas. So one way to do this is creating affinity maps, which is basically a lot of post-its and making observations from them. So yeah, going into affinity maps, this is an example of what that might look like. So this is actually really organized, but the step before this would just be brainstorming as many post-it notes as you can. And then once you brainstorm together, this is usually a group activity. So once you've brainstormed, you can step back and try to categorize it into different sections. And this is a really good way, especially if you're in a group setting, to see if there's any ideas that you can combine together, or if there's anything that the group thinks that you should really focus on. And then as a general rule of thumb for affinity mapping, you want to make sure that you stay empathetic. So you prioritize what the user needs over some ideas that you might think will look really cool. And also you want to stay observant and see if there's any repetition and trends so you can categorize them well, and stay open and think about what you might have not considered. And also be inclusive, because a lot of times accessibility is a problem in design, and we'll have a lecture on that, I think, in like 2 weeks. But you want to think about who you haven't considered. So now moving into user testing, this is where you're asking what might need to be fixed and seeing if there's anything that you haven't yet addressed. So for some user testing methods, if you want something really quick, you can do guerrilla testing, which is basically just going up to random people in public and asking them if they can test your product. But for more in-depth personal testing, you can do contextual inquiries and moderated usability testings, which are really similar, but they're basically just giving the user a task to do, and then you're watching them do it, and you're asking them if they like stop anywhere, why they stopped, and seeing what they have to say about that. And for larger scale testing, like moderated remote usability testing is really similar to the previous two, but it's just usually remote on a survey, and then they just give you feedback on how they felt about it afterwards. Okay, our last step is prototyping and fabrication. On the right, this is a really flushed out design. This is like the final prototype. But before we get to that, this is going to be our first step. So this is a wireframe or low fidelity mockup. This is like what you would do for mobile design. You can see there's just boxes for layout here. It's really rough and there's no text or pictures here yet. It's just laying out where you imagine everything would be. And this is like the user flow here. You can see if you click on this button, it'll take you to this page. And if you click on this, it'll take you here. Then after this, you can create a high fidelity or low fidelity mockup. This is what this is here. You can see they've filled in the boxes with pictures and text, and they've chosen a color scheme as well as like a typography theme. And this is what it would look like for physical product design. And then you see they like printed everything out and put it together. But the idea here is to create iteration for optimization, which is a fancy way of saying like repeat it until you think it's perfect. So going back to the human-centered design process, you see it looks pretty linear here, but we want to emphasize that there is a lot of repetition between like design and evaluation steps. For instance, if you get to the evaluation step and you're testing with the user and they're saying like, oh, maybe this function isn't really good, maybe you should change it to this. You want to go back to your design and then come up with a bunch of ideas on how to solve that problem, and then go back into evaluation, and then you want to get it perfect, or like you want to make sure that you're addressing everything in evaluation before you actually prototype the product, because it's a lot harder to change it there. But yeah, that was the end of our design lecture. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, perfect. This is our attendance form. What is the secret word today? CP2. Oh. Exit. Okay, exit. Our secret word today is exit. Yeah, that's the end of our lecture today. Thank you guys for coming. If you guys have any questions, we'll all be here until 8. Yeah, thank you guys. Yes, I can. Let me stop.